The last thing I remember before the impact was the rain. It was coming down in sheets that October evening in Seattle, the kind of downpour that makes the city feel like it's underwater. I was driving home from my law firm, exhausted after closing a major acquisition deal for one of our tech clients. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, probably my husband, Ethan, asking when I'd be home. I never got to check that message. The SUV ran the red light at the intersection of Madison and Broadway. I saw it too late, just a blur of headlights through the rain. The sound of metal crushing metal was deafening, then everything went black. When I woke up 3 days later in Harborview Medical Center, the fluorescent lights were blinding. My body felt like it had been torn apart and poorly reassembled. A nurse, her name tag read Patricia, was adjusting my four with gentle hands. "Welcome back, Mrs. Whitmore," she said softly, her eyes warm with relief. "You've been through quite an ordeal. You have a severe concussion, 4 broken ribs, a fractured left arm, and some internal bruising. You're lucky to be alive." Lucky. The word felt hollow. Where's my husband?" My voice came out as barely a whisper, my throat raw from the breathing tube they'd just removed that morning. Patricia's expression shifted, something I couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe? "He was here the first day. Left his number at the nurse's station. Would you like me to call him?" The first day. I'd been unconscious for 3 days, and he'd only been here for 1? "Yes, please," I managed to say, though a cold feeling was already spreading through my chest. Patricia left, and I lay there staring at the acoustic ceiling tiles, counting the small holes in each square. It was easier than thinking about why Ethan hadn't been by my bedside every moment. We'd been married for 8 years. We'd built a life together. A beautiful craftsman house in Queen and 2 golden retrievers, plans for children we kept postponing because of my career. My career. I was a senior partner at Morrison & Associates, one of Seattle's most prestigious corporate law firms. At 34, I was the youngest woman to make partner in the firm's 40-year history. I'd worked 70-hour weeks, sacrificed weekends, missed countless dinners. But it was all for us, for our future. Ethan had been supportive, or so I thought. He was a freelance graphic designer, talented but unmotivated. His income was sporadic at best, so my salary carried us. I never minded, I loved him, and I was good at what I did. The money came easily to me. An hour passed. Then 2. Patricia returned with an apologetic look. "Mrs. Whitmore, I've called 3 times. It keeps going to voicemail." My stomach twisted. Can you try again in a bit?" "Of course, honey." That night, as morphine dripped into my veins and the Seattle skyline twinkled through my hospital window, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was in a meeting. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he was so worried he couldn't function. There had to be an explanation. My own phone had been destroyed in the crash, so I had no way to reach anyone directly. The hospital staff had contacted Ethan using the emergency contact information from my insurance card. He knew where I was. He knew I was awake. So where was he? The next morning, my colleague and closest friend at the firm, Vanessa Park, burst into my room carrying an enormous bouquet of sunflowers, my favorites. "Oh my God, Natalie." She set the flowers down and carefully hugged me, mindful of my injuries. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "I've been so worried. When we heard about the accident, Her voice broke. "I'm okay," I lied. "Banged up, but I'll heal." Vanessa pulled a chair close to my bed. She was impeccably dressed as always, her dark hair in a sleek bun, her burgundy suit crisp despite the early hour. We'd started at Morrison & Associates the same year, climbed the ranks together. She was the sister I'd never had. "The firm is handling everything. Don't even think about work. Your cases are covered, and there's no rush for you to come back. Mitchell said to take all the time you need." She paused, studying my face. "Has Ethan been here?" I tried calling him yesterday to coordinate a visit, but he didn't pick up. There it was, the question I'd been dreading. He's been busy, I guess. Haven't seen him yet." Vanessa's expression hardened in a way I recognized from the courtroom. "Busy? Natalie, you were in a coma for 3 days. What could possibly be more important then?" I'm sure there's an explanation, I interrupted, not wanting to hear the concern in her voice because it would make the growing fear in my chest feel too real. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. We talked about inconsequential things, office gossip, the dogs her husband had been feeding them, the Seattle weather. She stayed for 2 hours before she had to leave for a deposition. After she left, I asked Patricia to try calling Ethan again. Still no answer. By the 3rd day of my consciousness, 5 days after the accident, I'd convinced myself something terrible must have happened to him. Maybe he'd been in an accident too. Maybe he was lying in another hospital, unconscious, and nobody knew to connect us. But then Mitchell Morrison himself, the founding partner of my firm, visited that afternoon. He was a distinguished man in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, someone I deeply respected. "Natalie," he said, his voice grave as he sat down. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by an SUV." I joked weakly. He didn't smile. Instead, he pulled out his phone with a reluctance that made my heart pound. "I need to show you something. Vanessa asked me to do this because she couldn't." He hesitated. "I'm sorry." He turned his phone toward me, and the world tilted. It was an Instagram post. Ethan's Instagram. Posted 2 days ago, 3 days after my accident. The photo showed him at La Push Beach, out on the Olympic Peninsula. The sunset was spectacular, painting the sea stacks in shades of gold and crimson. But I wasn't looking at the scenery. I was looking at Ethan with his arm around a woman I'd never seen before. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with flowing auburn hair and a carefree smile. They looked happy, intimate. The kind of photo couples post when they want the world to know they're together. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to escape the noise and find peace with someone who actually sees you. #new beginnings, #authentic living." My hands started shaking. Mitchell gently took his phone back. "There are more," he said quietly. "Multiple posts over the past few days." "I'm sorry, Natalie. I thought you should know." The morphine couldn't dull the pain that ripped through me then. It was worse than the broken ribs, worse than the concussion. It was the pain of betrayal, of humiliation, of realizing that while I'd been fighting for my life, my husband had been posing for sunset photos with another woman. "Who is she?" I whispered. "Her Instagram says her name is Brooke Cassidy. She's tagged in his recent posts. It looks like Natalie, it looks like they've been seeing each other for a while. There are photos going back several months." Several months. While I'd been working late nights at the firm, closing deals, building our future, he'd been building something else entirely. "The nurses said he was here the first day," I said, my voice hollow. "For maybe an hour. Then he disappeared." Mitchell's jaw tightened. "That son of a..." He stopped himself, took a breath. "What do you need?" "Whatever it is, the firm will provide it. Legal support, financial support, anything." I couldn't answer. I was too busy trying to breathe through the revelation that my marriage had been a lie, that the man I'd loved and supported and built a life with had abandoned me in my darkest hour for Instagram-perfect sunsets with someone else. That night, alone in my hospital room with only the steady beep of monitors for company, I did something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I cried until I had nothing left. But somewhere between the tears and the dawn, something else began to grow. Something cold and sharp and calculating. I was a corporate lawyer. I'd built my career on strategy, on reading people, on finding leverage in impossible situations. I negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, gone toe-to-toe with Fortune 500 executives, dismantled arguments with surgical precision. And now, lying in this hospital bed with a cheating husband who thought I was too broken to fight back, I started to plan. Because Ethan had made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. He thought my vulnerability meant weakness. He thought public humiliation would leave me powerless. He had no idea what papers were coming with my discharge. And he was about to find out exactly what kind of woman he'd married and betrayed. Recovery was slower than I wanted, but faster than the doctors expected. That's what stubborn determination and excellent health insurance will do for you. By day 7, I was sitting up without assistance. By day 10, I was walking short distances. By day 12, I had convinced them to bring me my laptop. "Mrs. Whitmore, You should be resting, Patricia protested as she helped me prop pillows behind my back. This is resting, I assured her, opening my computer. Trust me, this is therapeutic. She gave me a knowing look. She'd been my nurse long enough to understand that I wasn't the type to lie around feeling sorry for myself, and left me to it. The first thing I did was create a new email account. Ethan had always been careless about digital security, and we'd shared passwords for most of our accounts for convenience. His Instagram was linked to an email address I still had access to. Within 20 minutes, I was scrolling through his direct messages on a browser window. What I found made my stomach turn, but my resolve strengthened with every message. Brooke Cassidy wasn't just some fling. Their messages went back 7 months. 7 months of "Good morning, beautiful" texts and heart emojis. 7 months of planning secret meetups while I worked late. 7 months of him complaining about me to her. She's married to her job. I'm just an accessory in the life she's building. Another late night at the office. I can't remember the last time we actually talked about something other than bills or her cases. Sometimes I wonder if she'd even notice if I disappeared. I stared at that last message for a long time. The irony was almost funny. I disappeared into a hospital bed, fighting for my life, and he hadn't noticed at all. Or worse, he had noticed and simply didn't care. I kept reading, documenting everything with screenshots stored in a secure cloud folder. There were plans for him to move out, references to once the time is right, and when she's not in the middle of a big case. He'd been planning to leave me, but on his timeline, when it was convenient for him. The accident had apparently accelerated his plans. There was a message from the day after the accident, sent to Brooke. It happened. She's in the hospital. Bad accident. This is probably going to sound terrible, but maybe this is the universe telling me it's time. Life's too short, you know? Brooke's response: I'm so sorry, baby. But you're right, life is too short. You deserve to be happy. We both do. 2 hearts. They'd left for La Push the next day. I closed the laptop and stared out the window at the Seattle drizzle. The city was gray and beautiful, indifferent to human suffering. Cars moved along the streets below, people living their lives, unaware that mine had imploded. But I wasn't planning to wallow. I was planning to win. Vanessa arrived that afternoon with Thai food from my favorite place on Capitol Hill and a fierce determination to help me through this. Okay, she said, setting up the takeout containers on my rolling table. I know you well enough to know you're plotting something. What do you need? I smiled, a real smile for the first time in days. I need information. Can you recommend a private investigator? Someone discreet, thorough, and fast. Her eyes lit up with approval. I know just the person. Linda Reeves. Former FBI, now works private cases. She's expensive, but worth every penny. Money isn't an issue. No, Vanessa said with satisfaction. I don't suppose it is. We ate pad thai and discussed strategy like we were preparing for trial. Because, in a way, we were. Vanessa made the call right there, and Linda agreed to meet with me in my hospital room the next morning. Linda Reeves was exactly what I needed. 50-ish, no nonsense, with the kind of observational skills that made you feel like she could read your entire life story in a glance. She arrived with a leather portfolio and a recording device. Mrs. Whitmore, she said, shaking my good hand carefully. Vanessa filled me in on the basics. I'm sorry for what you're going through. Don't be sorry, I replied. Just help me get the truth. Over the next hour, I told her everything. She took notes, asked pointed questions, and occasionally nodded in a way that suggested she'd seen this story play out before. What exactly do you want to know? She asked finally. Everything. How long they've really been together. If he's spending my money on her. If he's planning to file for divorce, or just hoping I'll do it first. His finances, her background, any leverage I can use. And I want to know if there's anything else he's hiding. Linda smiled, the kind of smile a wolf might give before a hunt. I'll have preliminary findings in 3 days. Complete report in a week. Perfect. After she left, I opened my laptop again and accessed something else I'd been putting off. Our joint bank accounts and credit card statements. What I found was infuriating, but not surprising. Over the past 7 months, Ethan had spent over $40,000 of my money. Yes, my money, because his freelance work brought in maybe $15,000 a year on a good year. There were charges to expensive restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in Portland and Vancouver, jewelry purchases from boutiques I didn't recognize, even a weekend trip to Napa Valley that he'd told me was a design conference. He'd been financing his affair with my earnings. While I worked 70-hour weeks, he'd been playing sugar daddy with my American Express. I documented every transaction, every suspicious charge, every lie. The lawyer in me was building a case, piece by piece. But I needed more than financial records. I needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal. That evening, I called my personal attorney, not a colleague from Morrison and Associates, but someone from outside the firm. Jordan Phillips was a family law specialist, one of the best divorce attorneys in Washington state. We'd met at a legal conference years ago and stayed in touch. Natalie, Jordan answered on the second ring. I heard about the accident. How are you? I've been better. I need your help, Jordan. I need to file for divorce, and I need it to be airtight. There was a pause. Ethan?
Yes.
And it's complicated. It always is.
Can you meet me?
Or should I come to you? I'm still in the hospital. Can you come here tomorrow morning? Early, before visiting hours. I don't want any chance of him showing up. He hasn't been to see you? Jordan's voice sharpened.
Once.
The first day. Before I woke up. Jesus, Natalie. Okay. I'll be there at 7 a.m. And Natalie?
Don't talk to him if he contacts you.
Not a word. Let me handle everything. Believe me, I have no intention of talking to him. But Ethan didn't call.
Didn't text.
Didn't visit. For 14 days, I lay in that hospital bed, healing and planning, while my husband posted photos with his girlfriend, spending my money, living his best life. He made it so easy to hate him. Linda's preliminary report arrived via encrypted email on day 16. I read it 3 times, each time feeling my anger crystallize into something clearer and more powerful. Brooke Cassidy was 26, a yoga instructor and wellness influencer with modest social media following. She lived in a studio apartment in Fremont that cost $1,800 a month, except she hadn't paid rent in 3 months. The landlord was preparing eviction paperwork. She had credit card debt totaling $32,000, mostly from boutique clothing purchases and organic grocery stores. She posted about manifesting abundance and living authentically, while drowning in debt she couldn't pay. And Ethan had been paying it for her. I found the transfers buried in our checking account, monthly payments of $1,800 labeled as consulting fees that matched exactly with Brooke's rent. Cash App transfers for graphic design supplies that coincided with her credit card payment due dates. He was keeping her afloat while I worked myself into the ground. But it got worse. Linda's report included a detail that made everything else pale in comparison. Ethan had taken out a home equity line of credit on our house 6 weeks ago. $75,000, borrowed against the home that I had purchased with my signing bonus when I made partner, the home titled in my name alone because we'd never gotten around to adding him to the deed. Except he'd forged my signature on the HELOC documents. I stared at that sentence until the words blurred.
Forgery.
That wasn't just infidelity or financial infidelity. That was a crime.
A felony.
I immediately called Jordan. How angry are you right now? She asked after I explained. Beyond anger. I'm in a place where anger would be an upgrade.
Good.
Because we're going to destroy him legally, and I need you focused, not emotional.
Can you do that?
I thought about it. Took a deep breath. Let the lawyer and me take over from the wounded wife.
Yes.
What's our strategy? First, we file a police report for forgery. That HELOC is fraud, plain and simple. Second, we freeze all joint accounts immediately. I'll file emergency motions today. Third, we document every single dollar he's spent on this affair. Fourth, we file for divorce citing adultery with a full accounting of marital asset dissipation. And fifth, she paused dramatically. We make sure he doesn't see any of this coming until it's too late. What do you mean? When are you being discharged? 3 days. Day 19 post-accident. Perfect.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell anyone except your closest allies. Let him think you're still vulnerable, still in the hospital, still unaware. We'll have all our paperwork ready. The moment you're discharged, we file everything simultaneously: divorce petition, restraining order, fraud complaint, emergency motions for asset protection. We hit him with everything at once before he can hide money or prepare a defense. It was brilliant, ruthless, efficient, and completely unexpected.
Do it, I said.
Over the next 3 days, I healed with renewed purpose. Physical therapy hurt less when I imagined Ethan's face when he received the papers. Sleepless nights bothered me less when I was using them to review financial documents with Jordan over video calls. Vanessa visited daily, bringing me printouts of documents I needed to review since extended screen time still triggered headaches from my concussion. She'd taken personal time off from the firm to help me, and I loved her for it. "You know what the best part of this is?" she said on my last night in the hospital. "What?" "He has no idea who he's actually married to. He sees the woman who worked late and was always tired. But he's never seen you in a courtroom. He's never watched you dismantle an opponent's entire case in 20 minutes. He's never seen you negotiate when your back is against the wall."
She grinned.
"He's about to get an education." She was right. Ethan had lived off my success for years, but had never actually witnessed what made me successful. He saw the money I brought home, but not the killer instinct that earned it. He'd mistaken my love and devotion for weakness. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking a hospital bed made me powerless. On the morning of day 19, I was discharged. Patricia hugged me goodbye with tears in her eyes. "You're one of the strongest women I've ever met," she said. "Whatever you're planning, I hope it works." I smiled. "It will." Vanessa drove me home to Queen and in her Audi, the Seattle skyline emerging from morning clouds as we crossed the I-5 bridge. Our house looked exactly as I'd left it 3 weeks ago, except Ethan's car wasn't in the driveway. "Probably at her place," Vanessa muttered. I didn't care where he was. I had work to do. Inside, the house felt different, like I was seeing it for the first time. The original hardwood floors I'd restored, the kitchen I'd renovated, the furniture I'd carefully selected. All of it mine. Built with my money, my taste, my effort. And he'd been planning to take half of it. The dogs, Max and Luna, went crazy when they saw me, and I sank carefully to my knees to hug them, ignoring the protest from my healing ribs. At least someone in this house had actually missed me. "Okay," Jordan said, appearing from my home office where she'd been setting up. "Everything is ready. Documents are filed electronically as of 10 minutes ago. Process server is standing by. Where do you want to do this?" I looked around my beautiful home, the one I'd worked so hard for, the one Ethan had lived in rent-free while betraying me. "Here," I said. "I want him served here, in the house that was never really his. I want him to understand exactly what he's lost." Jordan made a call, and within the hour, our trap was set. All I had to do was wait for Ethan to walk into it. And I'd gotten very good at waiting. Ethan came home that evening, 23 days after my accident. I was sitting in the living room, carefully positioned in the leather armchair by the window, the one with the perfect view of the driveway. Jordan and Vanessa had left hours ago, but Linda's surveillance team was parked down the street, documenting everything. My phone was recording audio in my pocket. Every base was covered. I heard his key in the lock, the familiar sound that had once meant comfort and home. Now it just meant an intruder in my space. He walked in carrying a duffel bag, looking tanned and relaxed. He'd clearly been spending a lot of time outdoors with Brooke. When he saw me sitting there, he actually jumped. "Jesus, Natalie. You're home." He set down the bag, his hand over his chest. "I thought you were still in the hospital." "Discharged this morning." My voice was calm, neutral. The voice I used in negotiations when I held all the cards, but hadn't revealed them yet. "Why didn't you call me? I would have picked you up." The lie came so easily to him. I watched his face, looking for any sign of guilt, remorse, anything human. I saw only the inconvenience of my unexpected presence. "My phone was destroyed in the accident. Haven't replaced it yet." Right, right. Of course. He moved into the room, but kept his distance, hovering near the kitchen entrance like he was ready to flee. How are you feeling? You look better. Then what? Than when I was unconscious in the ICU? I tilted my head. Yes, I suppose I do. He had the decency to flinch. I'm sorry I haven't been to visit more. It's been complicated. Complicated. I let the word hang in the air. Is that what we're calling it? His eyes narrowed slightly. He was trying to figure out how much I knew, whether this was going to be a fight or an easy exit. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The same eyes I'd looked into 8 years ago when he'd promised to love me forever. Look, Natalie, we need to talk.
No, Ethan.
You're going to listen. I stood up slowly, using the movement to mask the fact that I was pulling my phone from my pocket and placing it on the side table where it could still record. I want to understand something. Help me with the timeline. What timeline? The timeline where you decided that while your wife was in a coma, it was the perfect time to post Instagram photos with your girlfriend at La Push Beach. The color drained from his face. You saw. I saw everything. The posts. The comments.
Her profile.
All the loving captions about new beginnings and authentic living. I took a careful step toward him. Was I not authentic enough for you, Ethan? Was working 70 hours a week to pay for this house, your health insurance, your sporadic career, your life, was that not authentic? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been having an affair for 7 months, financing it with my money, and the only reason you haven't filed for divorce yet is because you were waiting for the right time. But then I had that inconvenient accident, and suddenly the universe was giving you permission to abandon me. He stepped back, and I saw something shift in his expression. The mask of the caring husband cracked, revealing something uglier underneath. You want to know the truth? His voice hardened.
Fine.
Yes, I've been seeing Brooke. And yes, maybe the timing wasn't ideal, but Natalie, you have to understand, you were never really here anyway. You were always at work, always on your phone, always putting the firm first. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you came to bed before midnight? You married your job, not me. So this is my fault. I kept my voice level, but inside, I was cataloging every word for the divorce proceedings. I worked too hard to support us, so you cheated? I didn't set out to cheat. It just happened.
Brooke understands me.
She actually has time for me. She sees me as more than just a paycheck or an accessory. The audacity was breathtaking. An accessory? Ethan, I've been paying for your entire existence. Your car insurance, your gym membership, your freelance equipment, your health insurance, this house. Your house, he corrected bitterly. You never let me forget that, did you? Your name on the deed. Your money. Your career. Your. Did you ever think about making it ours? I tried to add you to the deed twice. You said you didn't care about that stuff, that it was just paperwork. And now you're complaining about it. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing. Now, it just looked like the performance it was. Look, I didn't come here to fight. I came to get some of my things. I think we both know this marriage is over. Oh, it's definitely over. But you're not getting your things tonight.
What?
Natalie, be reasonable. Reasonable? I laughed, and it came out sharp and cold. You want reasonable? Let me tell you what's reasonable. Reasonable would have been you staying by your wife's bedside while she was in the hospital. Reasonable would have been answering the nurse's calls. Reasonable would have been not parading your girlfriend on social media like some kind of victory lap. But you know what's not reasonable, Ethan? I pulled the folder from where I'd hidden it on the bookshelf and threw it on the coffee table between us. Papers spilled out, bank statements, credit card bills, transfers highlighted in yellow and annotated in my precise handwriting. Spending $40,000 of my money on your girlfriend over the past 7 months. That's not reasonable. He stared at the papers, and I watched his face go from tan to ashen. Paying her rent with my money, I continued, my voice getting harder with each word. Paying her credit card bills. taking her to expensive restaurants and weekend getaways while telling me you were at design conferences. And my personal favorite, I pulled out a specific document and held it up, forging my signature to take out a $75,000 home equity line of credit on my house. I can explain that. Can you explain it to the police? Because forgery is a felony, Ethan. That's not a divorce issue. That's a criminal matter. He went completely still. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? I moved closer, and he actually backed away from me. Good. Let him feel afraid. Let him feel vulnerable. You thought I was weak because I was hurt. You thought you could just walk away with half of everything I built. You miscalculated. Natalie, please. The doorbell rang, cutting him off. I glanced at my watch. Perfect timing. That's for you, I said. He looked confused as I walked to the door and opened it. A man in his 50s stood there with a clipboard. Ethan Whitmore? He asked, looking past me. That's him. I confirmed. Ethan approached slowly, dread written all over his face. What is this? You've been served, the man said, handing him a thick envelope. Have a good evening, ma'am. He nodded to me before walking back to his car. Ethan tore open the envelope with shaking hands. I watched his eyes scan the first page, then the second, then flip through the rest of the documents with increasing panic. You filed for divorce? And an emergency restraining order. You have 24 hours to remove yourself from this premises. Only personal items, clothes, toiletries, your laptop. Nothing else. There's a detailed inventory in there. You can't do this. I can and I have. Keep reading.
He did.
I saw the moment he got to the criminal complaint for forgery. His knees actually buckled, and he sank onto the couch. The police report for forgery and fraud. I continued, relentless. The emergency motion to freeze all joint accounts, already granted as of 3 p.m. today. The accounting of marital asset dissipation showing every dollar you spend on Brooke, which, by the way, Washington is a community property state, but judges really don't like it when one spouse depletes marital assets on an affair. I'll fight this, he said, but his voice was hollow. I'll get a lawyer. With what money? Your accounts are frozen. And, according to my calculations, you have about $200 in your personal checking account. Good luck retaining counsel with that. You're destroying me. I leaned down so we were eye level.
No, Ethan.
I'm protecting what's mine. There's a difference. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided to betray me. I'm just making sure you don't profit from it. He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear. What do you want? I want you gone. I want a divorce finalized with you getting exactly what you deserve, nothing. I want restitution for the money you stole. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. Natalie, please. I made mistakes, but we can work this out. Work it out. My voice rose despite my best efforts to stay calm. You abandoned me in a hospital. You forged my signature.
You stole from me.
You humiliated me publicly. And now you want to work it out because you've realized you're about to lose everything. I straightened up, looking down at him with all the contempt I felt. You have 24 hours. Take your clothes and get out of my house. If you're not gone, the police will remove you. And Ethan? If you try to contact me directly, you'll violate the restraining order. All communication goes through my attorney. Her information is in the packet. I walked to the stairs, then paused and turned back. Oh, and one more thing. That $75,000 from the Helic? I know you haven't spent all of it yet. I want every penny returned within 30 days, or I pursue maximum criminal penalties. Tell Brooke she's going to have to start paying her own rent. I climbed the stairs slowly, my ribs protesting, and went into my bedroom. Our bedroom, soon to be just mine again. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the sounds below. Ethan on the phone, his voice panicked and pleading. Drawers opening and closing. Zippers. The dogs barking. Finally, after about an hour, the front door opened and closed. I went to the window and watched him load his duffel bag and 2 suitcases into his car. He stood in the driveway for a long moment, looking up at the house, at me, though he couldn't see me behind the curtain. Then he got in his car and drove away. I waited until his taillights disappeared down the street before I allowed myself to feel anything. Then I sat on my bed in my house that I had earned, and I didn't cry. I'd done enough crying in the hospital. Instead, I called Jordan. "It's done," I said. "He's gone. How do you feel?" I thought about it. Tested my emotions like checking for broken bones. "Lighter," I said finally. "Like I've been carrying dead weight and finally put it down."
Good.
"That's good, Natalie."
Get some rest.
"Tomorrow, we strategize. Next steps."
But I didn't rest.
I couldn't. My mind was already 3 steps ahead, planning for what came next. Because Ethan being gone was just the beginning. The real reckoning was still coming. The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in controlled demolition. Jordan wasn't just good. She was exceptional. Every move we made was calculated, documented, and devastatingly effective. Ethan hired a lawyer, finally, though it took him 2 weeks to scrape together the retainer. His attorney was young, fresh out of law school, clearly taking the case either for the experience or because no one else would touch it. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The first settlement meeting took place in a conference room at Jordan's downtown office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Elliott Bay, where ferries crawled across gray water beneath grayer skies. Classic Seattle November weather, cold, bleak, unforgiving.
Perfect.
I sat next to Jordan, my medical records stacked neatly in front of me alongside the financial evidence. I'd healed significantly. The cast was off my arm. My ribs had mended enough that I could breathe without pain, and the bruises had faded. But I still looked like someone who'd been through trauma. I wore it strategically. Ethan walked in with his lawyer, a kid named Brandon something or other who couldn't have been more than 27. Ethan had lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, his usual confident swagger replaced by nervous energy.
Good.
Brooke wasn't with him. According to Linda's latest surveillance report, she dumped him 2 weeks after the money dried up. Apparently, authentic living was a lot less appealing without someone else's credit card financing it. "Let's begin," Jordan said, her voice crisp and professional. She slid a document across the table. "This is our final settlement offer." Brandon picked it up, and I watched his face go through several interesting color changes as he read. "This is, Miss Phillips, this is completely unreasonable. You're asking for full ownership of the marital home, all vehicles, all savings and retirement accounts, and restitution for the dissipated marital assets." "That's correct." "What does my client get?" "His personal belongings and the generous gift of me not pursuing maximum criminal penalties for forgery and fraud." Ethan finally spoke, his voice rough. "Natalie, come on. This is insane. I made mistakes, but you can't leave me with nothing." I looked at him directly for the first time since he'd walked in. "You left me with nothing, Ethan. While I was unconscious, fighting for my life, you were planning your new life with her. You stole from me, lied to me, humiliated me publicly. And now you want what? Compassion? Compromise. I'm still your husband. Not for long." I leaned forward slightly. "Let me explain something to you. I've spent the past 6 weeks documenting every single thing you did wrong. Every forged signature. Every dollar of my money you spent on your girlfriend. Every lie you told. I have witnesses, surveillance footage, bank records, Instagram posts, text messages. I have enough evidence to bury you in criminal court and civil court." Brandon tried to interrupt. "Ms. Whitmore, I understand you're angry." "I'm not angry," I said calmly. "I'm a senior partner at one of Seattle's top law firms. I'm a woman who just spent 3 weeks in the hospital because of a near-fatal accident, only to discover my husband had abandoned me for an Instagram model he was financing with my money. I'm not angry. I'm methodical." I pulled out my phone and opened it to a saved folder. "Would you like to see the screenshots of Ethan's messages with Brooke? The ones where he discusses how to maximize his take in a divorce? Or the ones where he jokes about me being a cash cow? Or perhaps you'd like to see the video compilation Linda's team put together of every time he visited Brooke's apartment while telling me he was at the library working?" Ethan's face went white. "You had me followed? I had my assets protected. There's a difference." I put the phone away. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign that settlement agreement. You're going to return the remaining $42,000 from the fraudulent helic within 90 days. I'll accept payment plans at 8% interest if necessary. You're going to walk away with your personal items and nothing else. And in exchange, I won't file criminal charges. That's extortion, Brandon said, but his voice lacked conviction. That's negotiation, Jordan corrected. Your client committed felony forgery. He fraudulently obtained $75,000 using forged documents. We have the handwriting analysis. We have the bank testimony that Ms. Whitmore was never present for the signing. We have medical records proving she was in the hospital when the notarization supposedly occurred. This isn't a case he wants to fight. The room fell silent except for the distant sound of traffic 16 floors below. Can we have a moment to confer with our client? Brandon asked. Take all the time you need, Jordan said pleasantly. We have another meeting in 45 minutes, but until then, the conference room is yours. We stepped out into the hallway. Through the glass walls, I watched Ethan and Brandon argue in hushed, urgent tones. Ethan kept shaking his head, gesturing wildly. Brandon kept pointing at the documents, his expression grim. What are the odds he signs? I asked Jordan quietly. 90%. His lawyer knows he has no leverage. The forgery alone would get him 2 to 5 years. He'll sign. She was right. 20 minutes later, Brandon opened the door and called us back in. Ethan wouldn't look at me as he signed page after page, initialing every line that would dissolve our marriage and strip him of any claim to the life I'd built. His hand shook as he wrote his name. When it was done, Jordan collected the documents with professional efficiency. We'll file these today. The divorce should be finalized within 60 days. Mr. Whitmore, you have 90 days for the first restitution payment. Don't miss it. Ethan finally looked up at me. Was I ever anything more than a paycheck to you? The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, the charming art student with big dreams and an easy smile. The man who'd held me when my father died, who'd danced with me in our empty house the day we moved in, who'd promised to be my partner through everything. But that man had been an illusion. Or maybe he'd been real once and had slowly been replaced by someone bitter and entitled. Either way, he was gone. You were everything to me, I said honestly. That's why this hurts so much. You weren't a paycheck, Ethan. You were supposed to be my partner, my best friend, my home. I worked those long hours for us, for our future. I never resented supporting your career because I loved you and I believed in you. But somewhere along the way, you decided my success made you small instead of proud. And that's not something I did to you. That's something you did to yourself. I stood up, gathering my things. I hope Brooke was worth it. She left, he said quietly, 2 weeks after the money stopped. I know. I hope that taught you something about authenticity. I walked out of that conference room with my head high, Jordan beside me, and I didn't look back. 3 months later, I stood in the same courtroom where I'd argued dozens of cases, but this time I was the plaintiff. The judge signed the final divorce decree at 2:47 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. 8 years of marriage, dissolved in less time than it took to order lunch. Ethan had made his first restitution payment, $10,000 that he'd apparently borrowed from his parents. He had 82 months of payments left. I'd be 42 years old by the time he finished paying me back. I didn't care about the money anymore. I had plenty of money. What I cared about was the principle: you don't get to betray someone and profit from it. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa was waiting with an umbrella, because of course it was raining. How do you feel? She asked as we walked toward her car. Free, I said, and meant it. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a Saturday completely off. No laptop, no work emails, no billable hours. Just me, the dogs, and a long walk through Discovery Park. The Puget Sound stretched out gray and endless, waves rolling in with patient rhythm. The Olympics loomed in the distance, snow-capped and indifferent to human drama. I stood at the beach, watching the water, and felt something shift inside me. For years, I defined myself by my career, by my success, by how much I could accomplish. And yes, I'd been good at it. I'd made partner young, earned respect, built security. But I'd also used work as a shield, as proof of my worth, as the thing that made me valuable. Ethan had been wrong about a lot of things, but maybe he'd been right about one. I had lost myself in the job. Not because I was a workaholic or because I didn't care about my marriage, but because I tied my entire identity to being exceptional at something. And when you do that, you give other people power over you. You make yourself vulnerable in ways you don't recognize until someone exploits it. I pulled out my phone and called Mitchell Morrison. Natalie? Everything okay? I want to take a sabbatical, I said. 3 months. Starting in January. There was a surprised pause. A sabbatical? You've never taken more than a week off in 8 years. I know. That's the problem. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not in a conference room or reviewing contracts at midnight. Is that possible? For you? Absolutely. You've earned it 10 times over. Where will you go? I looked out at the water, at the vastness of it, at all the possibilities it represented. I don't know yet. That's kind of the point. We talked logistics for a few minutes, then hung up. I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. My phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. Ethan's payment cleared. All legal matters now closed unless he defaults. You're officially free. I typed back. Thank you for everything. Her response was immediate. You did this yourself. I just handed you the tools. Proud of you. I pocketed my phone and called the dogs, who were investigating some particularly interesting seaweed. As we walked back toward the car, I thought about everything that had happened. The accident that almost killed me. The betrayal that revealed itself while I was most vulnerable. The humiliation of those Instagram posts, the ones that had been shared and commented on by people we knew. And the systematic, methodical way I'd taken control of the narrative and protected what was mine. People would probably call me vindictive, cold, unforgiving. But here's what they didn't understand. I hadn't destroyed Ethan out of revenge. I'd protected myself out of necessity. There's a difference between vindictiveness and refusing to be a victim. He'd seen my vulnerability as an opportunity. He'd mistaken my injury for weakness. He'd thought he could walk all over me because I was flat on my back in a hospital bed. He was wrong. And the papers he didn't expect? They weren't just divorce filings or restraining orders or criminal complaints. They were proof that I was stronger than he'd ever understood. That I could be hurt but not broken. That I could be betrayed but not defeated. They were proof that underestimating me was the biggest mistake he'd ever made. 6 months after the accident, I was standing in the Amalfi Coast watching the sun set over the Mediterranean. My sabbatical had taken me through Italy, then Greece, then Portugal, places I'd always wanted to visit but never had time for. I'd learned to paint watercolors in Positano, taken a cooking class in Athens, hiked the coastal trails of the Algarve, and slowly, day by day, I'd remembered who I was beneath the titles and the billable hours and the need to prove myself. I was Natalie Whitmore, no longer anyone's wife, not defined by my job, just myself. And that was enough. My phone rang. Vanessa, calling from Seattle. How's paradise? She asked. Rainy, but beautiful. How's the firm?
Busy.
Missing you. But I'm not calling about work. I have news. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. Ethan missed his second restitution payment. I waited for the anger to come, the frustration, the disappointment. But I felt nothing. Just mild disinterest. File the appropriate motions. I'll sign whatever needs to be signed when I'm back. That's it? No fury? No, I'll destroy him? I laughed. Vand, I already destroyed him. Or more accurately, he destroyed himself, and I just documented it. I'm not wasting another second of my life on him. File the motions, let the courts handle it, and send me pictures of your new apartment. We talked for a while longer about her cases and her love life and the office gossip I was missing. When we hung up, I realized I hadn't thought about Ethan in weeks. He'd become irrelevant, a chapter in my life that was closed and filed away. I stayed in Europe for another 6 weeks, then returned to Seattle refreshed and clear-headed. Morrison and Associates welcomed me back with a new corner office and a promotion to managing partner. I accepted both, but with new boundaries. No more 70-hour weeks, no more skipping vacations, no more defining my worth by my productivity.
I was good at my job.
Exceptional, even. But it wasn't who I was, it was just what I did. A year after the accident, I was having coffee with Linda Reeves, the private investigator who'd helped me build my case against Ethan. We'd become friends, bonding over her war stories from the FBI and my war stories from corporate law. "I saw Ethan the other day," she mentioned casually, "at a coffee shop in Ballard. He was with someone new." I waited for the pang of jealousy or hurt.
Still nothing.
Good for him. I hope he learned something. He looked. Linda searched for the word. Diminished. Like someone who knows he fumbled the best thing he ever had. That's not my problem anymore. She smiled and raised her coffee cup. To women who refuse to stay down. I clinked my cup against hers. To women who turn their discharge papers into declarations of war. Because that's what I'd done, really. While Ethan had been posting his sunset photos and his new beginning, I'd been planning his ending. While he thought I was too broken to fight back, I'd been sharpening my weapons. While he celebrated his escape, I'd been building his cage. The papers he didn't expect weren't just legal documents. They were proof that vulnerability isn't weakness. That being hurt doesn't mean being helpless. That sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who destroys you. I'd walked into that hospital broken and betrayed. I'd walked out of it transformed and victorious. And I'd learned the most important lesson of all. The strongest thing you can do after someone tries to break you is not just to survive, but to rebuild yourself into something they can never touch again. Ethan had tried to write me out of my own story. Instead, I'd written him out of his. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all.